I forget. Okay, so with that said, let's jump right into it. So for today, I want to just spend a few minutes exploring, what you think a career in accounting looks like. So again, if you see that chat function at the bottom, if you don't mind, maybe just sharing some sample job titles you hear or you've heard floating around. Okay, so are there one that you're particularly interested in, or one that you've heard, again and again and again. So if you can type in the chat, right? Anything that comes to mind, what are some sample job titles as it pertains to the accounting or finance or tax field? Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm seeing staff accountant. Definitely, that's, I think, a very common one. Okay, auditor. All right. Anything else? Okay, so if you are able to see that chat, right, we have a couple of comments there. So staff account, let's start with that one actually. Um, Typically, right, we would see that in a public practice role. And so you have a variety of different firms who may be posting staff accountant. But if you actually read the job description, you may pick up that, while the title may be the exact same, the actual work involved may be different, right? It may be a large company, maybe a small company. The actual day to day may look quite a bit different. So thank you for sharing the staff accountant role, because that is one that often, you look at it, you think it's the exact same, it's universal across every single company. That's not particularly true. Okay, I see auditor. So thank you for that. If you've taken an auditing course, you'll appreciate that a little bit more. When we say auditor, this could be internal auditor, right? Internal to the company, or it could be external auditor. So again, it looks the same, but very, very different roles. Controller, CFO, great. Okay. So again, if you can see that chat, what I see is actually a spectrum of roles, right? You have staff accountant, which is very entry level. And then I'm seeing CFO, right, which is kind of towards the other end of the spectrum, right? That's requiring quite a few more years of experience, definitely a very different day-to-day function. And so what I hope you can take away from that first conversation is that, one, a job title may look the same, but actually if you read into it and if you understand the description a little bit more, it's very, very different. Second to that, along your journey, you may join at an entry level, but you may aspire for something bigger, right? Controller, CFO, that's not necessarily something you can do right away. Okay, so if that was your plan, you may need to reevaluate your expectations, but you are gradually making your way towards those goals. Okay, and I think those are very, very great goals. Okay, thank you. Junior accountant, bookkeeper. Yes, those are all excellent sample and very common job titles. Okay, so we're going to switch gears very quickly here. And I just want to say a quick thank you actually to CPA Canada and Anita from KPU, so one of the instructors over at KPU, for sharing these slides. And so I think this is a colorful example of the different careers within our accounting field. Okay, so when you think of accounting, hopefully you can broaden your understanding of what that may look like. I understand that a lot of you are, still studying, so spending a lot of the time actually learning the theory, learning the technical, but I think it's quite important to take a step back and keep in mind what your goals are, right? What is actually out there? What are you working towards? Okay, so here is a sample. Again, this is from the CPA magazine. So I don't know if you've ever gone a hold of one, but they do issue periodic magazines. And so here we have an array of different CPA specifically. So these are accountants who have achieved a CPA designation, who have a different, who have different roles. So here we have Mr. Singh, who is the CFO of Sun Life. So I saw someone saying CFO as a sample job title. So definitely, right, their day-to-day involves certain challenges, certain job functions. We compare that to, say, I have here So Jamie is also a CPA. Okay, I don't know these individuals. This is from the magazine, but I thought this was just a colorful example to share how an accountant, or say how a CPA's day-to-day may look very different. So we have someone who's, clearly in that corporate setting as a CFO. We then have someone who has actually, gone more towards the entrepreneur route, using the skill set that they have gained through their accounting, accounting technical learning, as well as the CPA designation, and has actually founded or co-founded their own company. So kombucha, right, a health drink. Okay, so that day to day looks very different than the individual previously. Okay, here we have, again, just a sample, right? So if you bounce around this particular slide here, so these are all accountants, specifically CPAs, who have that designation, who are interested or passionate in a particular industry. So here, say climate change. So we have CEO, COO, CFO again, director of finance, controller. Okay, so again, just some different paths. Again, all accountants, all CPAs, but very, very different day to day. Okay, I think I have one last one here before we come back to earth a little bit. So here we have a couple of examples. Here they are very passionate, say, about nonprofits. Okay, so maybe that's something that you're very passionate about. So you may take your skill set, all that you've learned, and apply it towards something you're very passionate about, which is, in this case, say, the Daily Food Bank in Toronto, or the Calgary Food Bank, right? So these individuals are CFOs or treasurers. Okay, so definitely more senior roles within these organizations. Okay, so we have here, right, private enterprise, we have public sector, we have nonprofit. So these are all very, high level examples of different roles, different industries. Okay, one thing they all have in common is that they are all senior roles. Okay, and that's not really the focus of our conversation today. I would like to kind of maybe take a few steps back. What are some entry level roles that you may be working towards in the next few months or the next few years? Okay, these may be the end goal, or goals in the near future, but just manage those expectations, right? It's unlikely that you're going to get that CFO position the moment you graduate, or your first co-op position, and so we're going to take a step back on that. But before I do, any questions, anything to share, right, that you noticed with these particular examples? Okay, I will check the chat. Okay, so if you have anything to share, you can just type it there and I'll take a look at it. But I would like to take a step back. Okay, we are more on that entry level position. And so many of you, again, you're very busy with your studies, but many of you may actually be taking a look at some of these job search engines to sample what are some possible entry-level positions. So in the chat, can you just let me know, is that something you do actively, periodically, never? Okay, so in terms of researching or exploring some entry-level accounting positions, have you used any of these sites that you see here? Okay, so thank you. So I have here staff accountant, so congratulations. So public practice, and the job was actually through ZipRecruiters. I think we have that example right there. Okay, LinkedIn, Indeed. Okay, yes, very common examples. All right, and then we have LinkedIn again. Okay, so you know what? Let's actually do LinkedIn then. So for those of you who have used LinkedIn, this should look familiar. Okay, and let's just see. I think I need to reshare my screen because I don't think you see the LinkedIn site. So let me try that again. Okay, let's see if this will work. Okay, is that showing up then, the LinkedIn page? I think it is. Okay, so if you are familiar with LinkedIn, this is quite self-explanatory. You would log in to your particular site and explore within your community. If you're brand new to LinkedIn, you may want to consider creating a profile. Okay, that is definitely a good tool to use if you're comfortable having your presence online. But today we'll just explore outside of my account, okay? Because my account obviously is unique to me. It has recommended jobs that they think I would like, which are not necessarily entry level. So I'm gonna just go ahead and click on this job button here, and you can see a number of, okay, that's 5.97 million jobs available. Okay, so that's a lot of information. And so here, using whatever tools available to you, you of course can filter the information to make it a little bit more meaningful to you. Okay, so I first need to actually change the geographical location. Okay, so Vancouver. So that's going to change my job search. I can specify my entry level or my experience level. So here, let's say today we're going to look for entry level positions, job type, right? You can specify full-time, part-time, time. Okay, so there's further filtering you can do, but you know what? Let's find one really quickly today. Let's talk about it a bit, and then we can open questions at that point. But I'm going to just scroll through here. Are there any that you guys would be interested to explore a little bit more? So junior accountant, I think I saw someone write that. Junior accountant again. Junior accountant again. Okay, AR clerk, AP clerk, junior accountant again. So are there any that, and I will kind of just monitor the chat, and otherwise I'm just going to go ahead and pick one. Is there one that interests you at this point? All right, I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and actually pick one. Okay, and if we have time, we can do another one. So we saw junior accountant quite a bit. Okay, so here, let me actually let's explore that a little bit. What do they mean? Junior accountant. So we have we have 468 returns. Okay. And so at this point, I recommend that you take a look at the company, because as I mentioned earlier, the role junior accountant may look universal, but depending on the company, depending on the industry, it can be vastly different. Okay, so I do recognize some of these company names, some I do not. So I may need to research a little bit more to understand the company. But let's see, a mixture of retail. We see some recruiters actually recruiting on behalf of their clients, engineering. Okay, is there one that looks interesting? Okay, I think I saw one. I want to look at this one here. Vessi. Okay, so if you're not familiar, Vessi is a local shoe brand that was launched here by some young entrepreneurs. Okay, Micah is saying difference between junior and senior accountant. Definitely. So we'll do junior now. If we have time, we can look at senior. Otherwise, we can park that for next time. Let's do this one here. Okay, so for me personally, I love startups. I love small businesses, especially if they're local. So I do spend quite a bit of time with local small businesses, just helping out where I can. And so here in this particular platform, LinkedIn, you actually can apply to some of these positions right away. They may have, that application button. LinkedIn is a particularly interesting tool because it will tell you any contacts you may share. So if you have any relationships and they are somehow affiliated with this company, LinkedIn will show you that, and giving you a bit of an extra opportunity to learn more about the company, more about the role, right? So at this point, you are still growing your network, okay? But very important that you do build your network, because oftentimes we learn about different roles or learn about different companies through our network, not necessarily through online platforms. Okay, so that's something you will work towards. So here you can see entry level, full-time. Okay, so here let's take a look. You can learn more about the company, of course, if you click on their link, but this is their introduction. So as I mentioned, they are a startup waterproof footwear. Okay, so they're interesting. They have some interesting technology. Okay, so let's scroll down. This is now talking about what you'll do. So for this particular company, they are looking for someone to process payroll. Okay, that's interesting, right? When we think of junior accountant, we don't necessarily jump to payroll. Actually, these are very different credentials, and you actually could pursue another designation. I believe it's also called a CPA, but it's for the payroll designation. But right off the bat, they're saying, you know what, we need help with our payroll function. Okay, so processing it, liaising with their provider, so that may be Ceridian, ADP, whoever that may be that actually processes their payroll. It sounds like they need help inputting, right, and getting things organized so that they can actually run their periodic payroll. Review the accuracy and completeness of the payroll information and investigate discrepancies. So I find it interesting that that's the first one. Okay, so that maybe is their biggest issue right now. They need someone to help them with this job function. Do I necessarily enjoy payroll? Would I want this to be predominantly what I do for majority of my day? Maybe not. Okay, or maybe you're very passionate about payroll and taxable benefits and whatnot. So again, each person is very different. It looks like they also need help with accounts receivable. Okay, so that's a very different function. This is working with the employees and managing, their hours and making sure it's accurate, whatever controls are needed for that. This is now working with customers. Okay, so as you think of accounts receivable, have we been paid? We've made the sale, we've recognized the revenue in our records, but are we collecting on the receivables, or are we going to have bad debt? Okay, so it looks like they need help with this. So liaising with their wholesale team, so they may have some key relationships they're managing. Okay, so you're not only chasing for the cash, but you're mindful of these relationships, right? You want to maintain these good relationships and determining, whether credit checks are appropriate. Okay, so that's quite interesting. That's a very different realm than, say, payroll. So you'll learn and, start to master this particular function. Okay, report and process wholesale rep commissions. So this ties a little bit to the AR, but mostly to the sales, right? Specifically net sales. So we made sales, but clearly they pay out commissions. Okay, so this could be an area of weakness for them. I don't know. I'm absolutely speculating here, but maybe they feel like the commission is getting out of control. They need someone to manage that a little bit better, monitor that a little bit better. And so that's interesting that, again, they post that there, right? Is it 10%, 20%? Oh, it's creeping to 30, something's going wrong. All right, the second last line here is accounts payable. Okay, so very, very common to have, in a small business, the same individual managing AR and AP. Whereas if you start exploring and looking at larger companies, you may notice that, hey, you purely focus on AR. And then in another role, you purely focus on AP. Okay, so these are things you can start picking out and differentiating. AP, as you know, you are being chased by your suppliers to pay your bills. Okay, the main thing here is that you want to manage cash flows. Do I pay the bill tomorrow, or can I wait for that 30-day deadline? And of course, getting the appropriate approvals to actually issue the checks and making sure the company's controls are maintained. All right, the last one here is reporting. Okay, so supporting, interesting word choice there, supporting the month-end close process. So you may not be leading it, but you may be facilitating, helping in some way, and some analytical work. Okay, so that's good to see that they are trying to monitor that. So I would like you guys, we're kind of, at 9:56 here now, but this is just one example we'll explore today. As you explore more, I challenge you to look at these different similar job titles, but comparing and focusing on the job description. How does it compare? Is it similar, or they're asking for very different duties? Okay, what does that mean to you? Can you understand what that actually is saying? Of course, then you can scroll down and look for what is required. Okay, so generally with entry level, that is saying, minimal experience is required. They will likely train you as you go. But here you can see whether you have the requirements, or you need to work on something to make yourself competitive as you make these applications. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking because we're at 9:57, but I would really like to start taking a look at the chat, answering any questions you may have. If that's all you have for, if that's all the time you have for us today, that's totally fine. You can log off. And again, I'm recording this, so I will share this. But if you're free to stick around, I'm happy to answer any questions with regards to the example we shared today, or if there's anything else on your mind that you think I can answer or provide some clarity. Happy to do that. We can go a bit over. I'm perfectly fine with that. Okay, so Micah, maybe next time we will explore a senior role, okay? And maybe this company actually has a senior role position available. We can take a look at that and see how that compares. Okay, Hafida, in your opinion, is it better to article in a small accounting company or do one of the big fours? Okay, so this question is very, very specific. These examples we have here, these are all industry roles. Okay, if you don't understand what that means, please reach out to me or any of your instructors to learn the difference between public practice and industry. So this is an example here, Vessi, of an industry role because it's for the one company, the junior accountant role. The question I'm seeing here is focusing actually on public practice, which we didn't talk about today, right? And if you look, say, let's look at staff accountant. Okay, we can explore that next time a little bit. This is likely where you're going to see some more public practice firms. Oh, how come that's not showing? Staff accountant, search. Okay, so generally this is where they would pop up, but maybe they're not recruiting right now, so that's why I'm not seeing as many. But okay, let me get to that question. So is it better to article? I can't really answer that because it is a very unique decision to each individual. What I can answer today, and we can always explore this a bit more, is you need to understand the pros and cons. Okay, one, what are the pros and cons? Two, what are you working towards? What are your larger goals? And would a large international big four firm get you there? Or actually, would a small, intimate, small company get you there? Okay, so I don't have an answer. There are very big considerations, pros and cons, your unique circumstances, your work-life balance, your lifestyle, your other commitments that would govern these kinds of decisions. I would say on a very, very high level, my personal thought is if you see yourself working internationally, you want to be CFO of a public company in the future, likely, and this is my opinion, an international big four firm or a larger company, a larger public practice firm will get you there, right? You'll have that exposure, you'll be challenged in different ways that will lean itself more towards that path. Is that to say that if you do a different thing, you can't get there? Absolutely not. But generally, these kinds of paths will kind of facilitate that direction. With that said, if I find you saying, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to have my own business one day, I want to have a small business or a small practice of my own, my personal opinion is that a smaller firm actually gives you a lot more exposure and would prepare you for that direction. Again, not to say that if you go to big four firm, you cannot start up your own business or have your own small practice. That's not what I'm saying. It's just your articling months will look different, and I would say with the smaller firm, one, the work-life balance is a bit better. You can then see a bit more, right? You're not focusing 6 months on cash. For a large company, you're seeing the entire file. For a smaller company within a 2-month period. Okay, so that would be kind of the difference, and therefore that will give you different exposure, different experiences. So Hafida, I'm sorry, that's not quite the perfect answer I think you're looking for, but the main takeaway today is that it really does depend. My recommendation is to consider what you're working towards, what are your 3, 5, 10-year goals, and just making sure the path that you're on will get you there. Okay, I see one last question there. 2+ years of relevant experience for a junior accountant. Okay, so you're looking at the Vessi example I think we had earlier, correct? That is not uncommon. And so what I would like to say today is please look at the requirements, but do not be discouraged by the job requirements. Okay, so this is the company asking for the moon. And sometimes they just ask for things that aren't actually relevant. For example, I've seen or I've been in positions where they needed a CPA, CA, CFA, CBV. Okay, I do not have all of that, but I still got the position, right? Because again, you asked for this and it's an asset, sure, but is that necessarily required for the job? Your personality may shine and you may be seen as someone that is trainable to get you there. Okay, but yes, of course, if they're saying 2+ years, having 2+ years is an asset, but I would not want you to be discouraged to not apply if you see this kind of wording, right? Again, think of it as, good to have, but, hey, I have all these other skills. I think I'm trainable. I think I can bring something to the team. Okay, so building that confidence to apply. And at your level, at an entry level, honestly, you're going to be applying a lot. Your rate of successful interviews in relation to your job application will be discouraging, but over time, you will notice that it does get better, right? And so again, the main point here is please don't be discouraged and just be confident, and go for it, right? The worst they can say is no, and you look for another opportunity. Okay, so with that said, I do hope that this was helpful. This was interesting. Again, I kept it very short at 30 minutes because, this is we're just exploring this and seeing if this is something that you enjoy. And then, I will host another one in 2 weeks. So if you did enjoy, please come back. We'll, to continue this, or if there's another particular example you guys really want to explore, we can talk about. But this is the idea, is to kind of sample what we're seeing, translate it a little bit in my words, in my opinion, which again may differ across various individuals, right? If someone else read this, they may interpret it differently. So just keep that in mind. These are my opinions, and I welcome any questions. Please do share, and others will hopefully be able to benefit from this as well, because they may be thinking of it, but they can't quite articulate it in the same way. Okay, so I am going to call it. I will stop recording now, actually, so I should stop doing